Hi, my name is David Zamora, and today I'm going to be talking about why local elections have a lot more importance and influence than you might think. So, local elections provide a great deal of influence to certain things. So, local elections actually they influence the amount of attention a certain project or a certain bill can receive within a district or within a federal level. For example, road work might not be as important, but federal tax reform could actually be given a great amount of attention through local elections. Also, politicians tend to start off more locally. For example, a lot of current politicians, especially well-known ones, did start off on a more local level. So, Congress officials are actually elected through a local process, and although it may not be as important as a presidential or as even as captivating as a presidential campaign, they're still really important. Local elections are actually held in congressional districts, which are small cities sectioned off into several zones where multiple people campaign for their spots. And the reason these are so important because if they're neglected, the wrong people could get in office and your needs or wants could not be heard properly. People in Congress actually make the changes you want. So, for example, if you want road changes, you go to your local congressman. Same thing applies for multiple list of issues. They are if they're not chosen by us, then who are they going to be chosen by? And the general public has actually a big role in this. They have to be very publicly active in their local elections because if not, like I said before, any shady congressman or any shady person with several interests could just get in office pretty easily. So here we have a list of several very famous congressmen and women, and I'm just gonna explain why. So first off, we have Senate Majority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell, who actually started off in Kentucky. Second of all, I have Speaker of the House Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, and we have Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. Uh, Democrat Hillary Rodham Clinton from New York, and the list goes so on. So as you can see, each one of them started off in a very local manner, and these are all very recognizable names. So the reason this matters so much is because the congressmen and women actually have a lot of responsibility and somewhat power in their hands. They can help change society for the better or the worst, and sometimes it can be for the worst, especially when several companies decide to distribute these random donations, quote unquote, because they are more like illicit contributions to help promote their agenda. So, to further explain on this, it's more like taking a very illegal paycheck from a company to say, or to more so importantly, swing the vote for a very important bill, maybe tax reform, tax breaks, or other business related things to favor their end instead of favoring what's more optimal for the people. Pharmaceutical companies such as Johnson Johnson, Pfizer have actually been known to contribute millions and millions of dollars yearly to lobby for more tax breaks, less regulation on production, things including zoning laws, and that's really important because if pharmaceutical companies can do it, imagine who else can. It's very important that congressmen and women are very responsible and upfront with their responsibilities and duties, and they don't take donations because that can heavily sway how Congress and the government work. Also, to further explain on lobbying is essentially when a company sends out a representative to a election day. For example, they'll send out someone in the Capitol on election day, and they'll try to convince the congressman or woman with a certain amount of donation money, quote unquote. Again, it's more like illicit paychecks, but they'll try to convince them into swaying the vote onto something more favorable for the company instead of what is actually really good for America itself. And the most notable case of this is actually very recently, Mr. Martin Shkreli here. He made headlines all across the world. I'm sure you've seen his face. He's been known as the most punchable face on earth. But anyways, he was the hedge fund manager at Elia Capital and MSMB Management slash Healthcare. So what he was most importantly known for is he is known as the poster child for pharmaceutical companies currently. he took the $13.55 AIDS pill and skyrocketed it to $750 a pill. So that kind of just brought a lot of attention to the subject and put him up front and on the line about how much abuse this company, or specifically this industry, dishes out to its consumers. On the good side, though, he does face 7 years for securities fraud, defunding hedge fraud investors, and has currently been convicted. So I'm not sure exactly when he's going to serve them, but it's going to be sometime soon. And I posted these graphs to help further explain my point. So on the left side, we have the amount of millions, not just hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars donated throughout the years. And as you can see, as of more recently, it's been a very, very large amount. It's been very, very eye-opening. And on the right, I have a list of companies and how much they've donated. So at the top, we have the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America donating an annual of $10 million. So it's annually they're dishing out $10 million just to help sway opinions on bills. So that's really important, and that should open a lot of eyes to see why this is such an important issue, because that could have a big influence on things that affect us and affect, more importantly, the middle and lower classes. Before we all lose hope, we still can make a difference. And there's several ways to do this. So I'm just going to list off a few, but this is not just a definite list. There's still a lot more you can do. Just be more actively participant in your local government. That's a big step in the right direction. But most importantly, pay attention to smaller local elections. Pay a good eye on them. Check out who's participating in them, who's running. That could make a difference, because most of the time you'd find yourself agreeing with a lot of local politicians and saying, well, these people should be in Congress. Or sometimes you might actually find yourself running, which has happened a few times. But most importantly, find a politician you agree with, share the same ideology, and maybe even share the same compassion for certain things, and support them in any way you can through contributions or even volunteering for their campaign. Although that might sound a little weird, it does help a lot. And lastly, make sure you're registered around voting time. A lot of people overlook this because they assume they're automatically registered, but the case is they're not. So always make sure you're registered. Get your friends and family to register, because that could help a lot. That helps a lot already.